Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming in today. I know it's a beautiful day out there, so thank you for getting a little bit out of the. It's a beautiful day out there, and you're clapping for that, sir. That's good. That's excellent. I've been out there too. So, okay. So, what I'm going to do for you right now. First of all, this has been so fun for me. I mean, this is my 4th time that I've gotten to perform or speak for you. I figured that I probably at least 1,000 of you have seen me this week, and on that note, I want to thank my 3 new social media followers. That was really nice of you. Yeah. You don't worry, if you don't follow me on social media, I'm not on social media all that much because I have discovered if you spend too much time looking and trying to find out things about yourself on social media, eventually you come up with something like this.
What is the worst name a dude can have?
Ooh, probably Greg.
Greg? How many Gregs do you know?
I know a couple actually.
Just hate them?
I just don't like the name. The guys are fine, just the name is just, it's an immediate turn off.
So you're just like, you never hook up with a guy named Greg?
No, I wouldn't.
Explains why not a lot of people have been knocking on my door. I'm on deck .2, by the way. No. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to speak for about 35 minutes, and then I want to open it up to questions about this topic. This is a fairly new presentation that I've created. I've only given it on a cruise line twice. I've given this presentation for a lot of HR groups because they're trying to understand humor as well. But as I said, the last 10 minutes, well, no, you'll see. That's kind of the point. I'm going to open it up to questions in 10 minutes, and I want to hear your questions. People always have very interesting questions, and you can ask questions about what you saw in this presentation. If you want, you can just ask questions of me of what it's like to be a comedian, because it is a very interesting, very unique job. But what I want to do now is I want to show you this video that kind of explains where humor was, where it currently is, and where it's going. And we're going to break it down after that. And I will tell you that some of what you see might make you a little bit uncomfortable. However, that is the nature of humor today. What some people think is funny, others might not think is funny. But let's take a look, and then we'll talk about everything you saw.
Here she comes.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed up!
Don DeLuise now sucking the ice, trying to go for another drink. Dom, you're great. Have you ever heard of cottage cheese? You ought to give it a shot. Can you see him in a health club with that body? Looks like a hard-boiled egg that didn't break on the dish. You got a bad body. I'm a friend, Dom. You're never going to make friends on the beach going, whoa. Looks like a $3 whale.
Got some in from Australia. They're all in the shape of a koala.
Only a man has died. We came here to show respect, not to laugh.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Mr. 354 would always pick himself up. Dust himself off and say, I hurt my
It certainly is a big
The
bun.
woman on
It's
the
a very
left as well as the one on the
big,
right.
fluffy bun.
It's a very big, fluffy bun.
Where's the beef?
Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun.
Where's the beef?
At Wendy's, we serve a hamburger we modestly call a single. And Wendy's single has more beef than the Whopper or Big Mac. At Wendy's, you get more beef and less bun.
Hey, where's the beef? I don't think there's any bun back there.
You want something better. You're Wendy's kind of people.
didn't get any bread.
Just forget it, let it go.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3. No soup for you.
Attention everyone, hello. Yes, I just want you to know that this is not my decision, but from here on out, we can no longer be friends. And when we talk about things here, we must only discuss work-associated things. And we can consider this my retirement from comedy. And in the future, if I want to say something funny or witty or do an impression, I will no longer ever do any of those things.
Does that include that's what she said?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow, that is really hard. You really think you can go all day long? Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling, so.
That's what she said.
Come on, please. Please.
If people can't control their own emotions, then they have to start trying to control other people's behavior. And when you're around super sensitive people, you cannot relax and be spontaneous because you've no idea what's going to upset them next.
From the bottom of my heart, I apologize to everybody who I offended with my words on stage.
Offense is about feelings, and feelings are personal. Some people are offended by equality. So what? You know, so you can't second guess people. If you try and please everyone, you'll please no one. With comedy as well, I think you've got to deal with taboos and contentious issues. I think that's what humor's for. It gets us over bad stuff. So it's a sin, not to joke about all the bad things, that's a waste. Because that's exactly what we should joke about. Just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. You know, it's...
All right. A lot going on in that video, right? Yeah. So now let me kind of explain why I chose the clips that I did. I started in the 1950s. That Lucille Ball clip, and I know some of you probably are dating your age and so forth, but by knowing what that is, but Lucille Ball was really was one of the people who pushed the envelope of comedy. First of all, being a woman. And taking center stage, just the fact that she was shoving candy down her shirt, right? You didn't, between her and Gracie Allen, they were doing things that you didn't see women do in the 1950s. And that translated over into the 1960s. Now, in the 1960s, you saw that clip of Don Rickles. I noticed in this audience that everybody got a little bit tight when he was talking. He was making fun of Dom DeLuise, mostly about his weight. Now, you know who was laughing the hardest at that was Dom DeLuise. But in this audience, it's almost like you guys were a little afraid to laugh at something that personal. Let's move on to the 1970s. I chose those clips. Now we're getting into clips and sketches that I'm not sure could be made today. The Tim Conway old man sketch that used to always crack up Harvey Korman. Okay, Tim Conway played a completely senile old man. And it was one of the most popular sketches in the Carol Burnett show. And then we flipped to the Mary Tyler Moore episode. Now, I don't know if anybody ever saw the Chuckles Bites the Dust episode. What that was Chuckles was a clown, and he was crushed to death. He dressed up as a peanut, and he was crushed to death in a parade by an elephant. And everybody in the cast couldn't stop making jokes about it. Mary just thought it was just horribly wrong that they were doing that, and then it got to the memorial service, and she's the one who couldn't stop laughing at every single reference. Brilliant episode. We moved into the 1980s. You saw the Wendy's commercial, the Where's the Beef episode. I, for one, don't think that commercial would be made today. I think that they would test market that, and somebody would say, no, we can't do that. We're making fun of the elderly. We're making fun of people who are hard of hearing. We're making fun of people with early onset dementia. The woman on the left was answering a bun, for God's sakes, okay? And yet, for those of you who remember, Wendy's was a hamburger chain that was at death's door before that commercial came out. They were getting crushed by McDonald's and Burger King. After that commercial, Wendy's sales rose 34%. That commercial might be the only reason that Wendy's is around today. That phrase, "Where's the beef?" became a national catchphrase. Wendy's owes that commercial to their success. We move out of the 1990s. You were all laughing at the famous Soup Nazi episode. Do you think, though, if today in a writer's room somebody said, "I have a great idea for a character, it's called the Soup Nazi," do you think that would pass muster? No, absolutely not. Then we get into the 2000s with The Office. I saw how hard you were laughing, my man, at that one. Okay? But here's the thing about The Office. Even the writers of The Office today, if you interview them, they say some of the sketches and some of the plots that they came up with, they would not be comfortable doing today, or they don't think that they would pass muster. And now we have humors to where it is today, where you have comedians apologizing for a bit that they did on stage that offended not the whole audience, but one person in the audience. Why is that? How did we get from Lucille Ball doing this and Dom DeLuise making fun of people who are overweight to what you saw at the very end? What we're doing, unfortunately, is we're trying to define what is and isn't funny. We're trying to answer the question, what is funny? And I hate to tell you this, there is no answer to that question. There is no right answer, and yet we're trying to, I don't know what's funny. I don't. I write jokes, and I hope that you laugh at them. You know who else does it the same way? Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld does not know what is and isn't going to work when he writes a joke. He just hopes that it works. But what's happening is we are so into trying to answer this question that we are narrowing the definition of what is and isn't funny until finally there's very little left. I want to share with you a quote. I mentioned that I do a lot of shows for big corporations, and I was negotiating with a food contractor for a show, and they looked at my contract and they said, "We would like you to insert this into your contract. Artists will under no circumstances be profane or perform material that is objectively offensive or unwelcome based on race, color, religion, sex, pregnancy, national origin, ancestry, citizenship, age, marital status, disability, veteran status, sexual orientation, or gender identity." What's left after that?
Not much.
But that's what they wanted. Right? That's what I finally said I will do it, but I said, who's the cop? Who's the one that's going to actually make that decision? And they even could not answer that question. How many people remember the Oscars 2 years ago?
Oh.
There you go. Exactly. That was that incident because Will Smith took exception to one joke that Chris Rock made, and that is what transpired. Unfortunately, it was a very sad moment, and it was a very difficult moment, I think, for comedy, and it's really never ever been settled. Okay, I don't want things like this to ever happen again, because the reason I brought this lecture and created it is because I want everybody here to realize that the positive benefits of humor far outweigh the negative ramifications of it. And it's really, we can all have differences of opinion on what is and isn't funny. At the same time, if we just learn to respect what others find funny, we can avoid things like that. I believe there are 3 topics that should be able to bring people together. If you were on this cruise by yourself and you just walked out on the deck and you heard one of 3 topics being spoken about, you could probably jump right in. One is sports, one is music, and the third one should be comedy. Should be comedy. Music and sports bring people together. Comedy, unfortunately, is driving people apart, and it can't do that because this is what's happening. Some of your favorite comedians, some of household names that got their start doing stand-up comedy are no longer doing it. This is a quote from Tim Allen. "Everything is okay as long as I'm not being offended." This is Steve Harvey. When asked why he doesn't do stand-up anymore, he said, "Every joke you tell now, it hurts somebody's feelings. What people don't understand about comedians is that a joke has to be about something. It has to be about somebody. You can't write jokes about puppies all the time. You can't write jokes about bushes all the time. Some of these jokes have to be about people because that's the most interesting topic." right? But he's had enough people that have pushed back on some of his material that he said it's not worth it to me, and that's very sad. And then, of course, you have, which you saw him do on The View, and he just reiterated, and I just put it right here, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. What we're doing is we're so busy, we're so wrapped up in the negative ramifications of humor that we're forgetting what humor does. You've probably heard this before. This is just some of the positive benefits of humor. Just take a look at that. And that's only half of them. Here's the other half right here. This is what humor does. All right? Take a look at those. And I specifically want to focus on this one. It makes you more desirable. Even if your name is Greg. Anyway, this is the reason I got into comedy. Right here. This is the reason I started doing stand-up, is because I wanted people to feel good. And what's interesting is that I had a job that I thought was doing exactly the opposite. Before I got into comedy full-time, I was living in Florida, and I was a journalist. I was a television news reporter. And basically, all I did was depress people all day long, because I would report on horrible things, things I wouldn't wish. I saw things in my job that I would not wish on anybody. And that became almost a daily occurrence. And yet then, my stories would be filed, and it was 6 o'clock, and the 6 o'clock news would be over, and I would go to comedy clubs, and I would put on my comedy hat, and I'd make people laugh. And it didn't take me long to realize what I would rather be doing. Is to make people laugh, because I do believe that humor can get us past anything. I believe any subject, just about any subject, can be funny. Notice I said just about. I don't think anything is funny about what's going on in the Middle East. I don't think there's any way you could make any kind of a joke about that. However, those of you who saw me last night, you heard me talk about that I am a recent cancer survivor. I made jokes about that. I also, in one of my shows, I made jokes about COVID. Now, a lot of people might think there's nothing funny about a disease that's killed over 1 million people. No, that's not funny. But think about how COVID turned our lives upside down, right? Think of all the weird stuff we had to do because of COVID. That is funny. Comedy motivates people. It motivates people much more. That's what I get asked to do a lot of times when I do corporate shows. They go, Greg, make us laugh, but motivate us as well. Because comedy has a lot of motivational factors. In fact, you know what? I love it when I go into these organizations for meetings, and they have all these motivational slogans slapped all over the wall. You know, we only know one direction. Forward! Success doesn't come to you, you go to it! We have no idea what that one means. These are all from the same company, by the way. This is the way they go to work. I like this one, it's my favorite. Don't let what we can do interfere with what we can do. That's a great slogan. I think it would have been a lot more impactful if it wasn't in the background during company donut day. But anyway, don't get me started on motivational speakers, by the way. This has nothing to do with the presentation. But you know, here's my beef with motivational speakers. They always have the same annoying habit. They all want you to finish their sentences for them. All right? Next time, you know, let me give you an example. Let's pretend I'm a motivational speaker. Here we go. We don't want losers on the beyond. We want winners. That's my point. Somebody falls for it every single time. You hire these guys for an hour, they speak for 30 minutes, the audience fills in the blanks. What a gig. Next time you see a motivational speaker doing that, yell out something completely nonsensical. Throw them off their script. You know, you guys are good, you guys are great, but you can always be drunk. No. Where was I? I don't know. I mentioned COVID. COVID, I think a lot of what I'm talking about now we can attribute to COVID, because COVID changed our moods. We became less funny. We stopped laughing, right? Before COVID we were like this. Now we're more like this, right? Before COVID we were like this. Now, yeah, it's more like that. And yet, when you were stuck in your house. You were stuck in your house during those 2.5 years. You took solace in YouTube. And what were you looking for all the time? You were looking for the funny videos, right? The ones that could make you laugh about this horrific situation that we were all in. Does anybody remember this family?
2021 and it's a little bit lonely. No one's ever coming round. It's 2021, we bet we'd all be outside, but I'm still listening to the sound of the third lockdown.
Okay. That's a British family. They're the Marsh family. They all have they're a very musical family, and they were all cooped up, and all they did was start doing those videos, and they attracted an audience of millions. People could not wait to see what the Marsh family was coming out with next. They appeared on Ellen. They became famous all over the world. Now, this was an interesting article in Forbes. Forbes magazine said we need to start bringing humor back to advertising. Humor in ads is going away for the reasons that I just mentioned. People are afraid. We've had some really big advertising faux pas that have come up in the past couple of years. But people trying to be funny, trying to be witty, trying to be clever, and it has gone horribly wrong. And yet, when you watch the Super Bowl, what are the ads you remember? The funny ones, right? In fact, recently there was a survey done of the top 10 funniest Super Bowl ads, and I want to show you the one that came in at number 1.
Mike, what's your deal, man? Come on, man. You've been riding me all day. You're playing like Betty White out there. That's not what your girlfriend said.
Better?
Better. You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
Right? You watch that one over and over, couldn't you? Right? And yet, I'm not even sure that one would be made today. Well, Betty White's gone, but I mean, she was the perfect person to play that. But I'll guarantee you, if you test marketed that, somebody would go, really? You're beating up on old ladies? That's what you're going to do? Let me be the voice of reason here. This is the question we're all trying to answer. Why aren't we laughing? I just mentioned COVID was a big part of that. And yet, COVID is more or less over now. That's why we're all back out here doing our fun thing and so forth. But what is happening is that this was an article in the Washington Post recently, and it said that fun is dead, that we're not having fun. And the reason this article said we're not having fun is we're overthinking everything. We're trying so hard to have fun that we're having less fun. And they brought up things like gender reveal birth announcements. They said instead of just saying we're going to have a baby, they have to make a big event out of it. They have to invite all their relatives, and then they have to, have explosives, which set people's hair on fire, and all of a sudden it becomes a stressful event when it was supposed to be just a joyous occasion of we're going to have a boy or we're going to have a girl. But we don't do that anymore. We're overthinking every single thing that we do. All right? The other thing that we're doing is we're not giving people a chance to get the joke out before we get offended. I'm going to go back a slide here real quick. So I'll give you a good example. This happened to me in one of my shows. This is a joke I only do for tech audiences. And the joke is I always say that tech audiences, tech people, what they do is so complicated even they can't explain it. Like I said once, I said to the owner of this company, I said, what does your software do? And he said, well, basically, Greg, our software solves the problems that keep you up at night. And I said, well, that's great. So if I buy your software, that means I can eat Indian food again. Okay. I like the joke. He thought it was pretty funny. I did the joke on stage. This woman comes up to me after the joke. She's of Middle Eastern descent. And she goes, I did not appreciate that joke. I said, because? She said, because you're making fun of Indian people. I go, no, I'm not. I was making fun of Indian food. And if anything, I was making fun of myself for not being able to handle it. right? And she thought about that for a minute, and she goes, oh, that makes sense now, right? But the minute I said Indian, her guard went up. And that is, I think, is what happens to people, right? They pull a word out or a phrase and they think, okay, I'm going to shut down. A classic, and this is still going on, is the Dave Chappelle transgender controversy. Dave Chappelle is, it's more the transgender community is at war with Dave Chappelle over some comments that he made in one of his specials. And if you watch his entire special, and this is what he said to the transgender community. He said, I will be more than happy to meet with you, but you have to watch my entire special first. And if you watch his entire special, he talks at the very end about how he, as an African-American male, knows exactly where the transgender community is coming from because he too has been the victim of racism and being stereotyped and so forth. I thought it was very interesting. And yet, it doesn't seem to be happening. That controversy is still going on. Now, I'm going to play you a clip. I was on Dry Bar Comedy a couple of years ago, and I'm going to play you a clip of a joke that Dry Bar liked so much that they put it on YouTube, which I didn't get a say in. I signed a bunch of documents saying, go ahead, you can use it any way you want. And then I'm going to show you what happened as a result.
I think the only thing worse than the one stupid college major is the two stupid college majors, the double major. There's this girl that works in my health club. I said, what'd you major in? She goes, oh, I was a double major. Philosophy and Italian studies. Great. Yeah, you'll be the deepest thinking waitress at the Olive Garden now, won't you?
I like the joke. I think it's pretty funny. I've been doing that joke for a long time. Dry Bar liked the joke, so they put it on YouTube. And then I'm scrolling YouTube, and I see this. I love comedy, but this guy is not funny, just creepy for cheap laughs. I normally don't answer my social media trolls, but I felt like I had to do something here, and I had to sort of defend myself a little bit. But there's two ways that you can defend yourself. I always say the best way is to engage, but never attack when somebody has a difference of opinion with you on what is and isn't funny. Attacking would have been me firing up my laptop and saying, creepy? You know what's creepy? It's guys like you who live in their parents' basement and have no friends and therefore are doing nothing except surfing YouTube at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I didn't do that. I answered with this. Creepy is so general. How about macabre, sinister, ominous? My wife probably has a few more. 10 minutes later, probably less, I got this. I take it back. At least you have a good sense of self-deprecating humor. That's what I'm talking about right there. All of a sudden, we had a conversation. This guy now follows me. He's like one of my biggest fans. This guy follows me on all of my social media channels. Every now and then, he will, when I post a joke or two, he will give me advice on how I should have done it. Which is fine. That's better than being called creepy. I've never met this guy, but I would like to meet him sometime. By the way, it's going back to, you don't see me posting a lot of stuff. Here's why I don't post a lot of clips on YouTube, is because now it's interesting. The technology has gotten so advanced that they automatically caption everything you say, and these captions have taken on a mind of their own. Like I posted something last month, and I'm watching it, I'm reading the captions, and I do the joke, and then I see this in parentheses, laughter. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And then I told another joke, this time, mild laughter. I stopped watching. I didn't want the third one to be, that one sucked. I think the biggest thing, and this is, I'm gonna talk for just a couple more minutes because I feel like some of you already have some questions for me, but I can't, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, I can't tell you what isn't funny. I can't tell you what isn't offensive. I have performed for you 3 times on this cruise. A lot of you have come up and told me how much you enjoyed it. I've also seen more than one person walk out during my show, and I know who you are. Should I be offended by that? No. I'm sorry you didn't like it, but I'm not for everybody. Just like, Jim Gaffigan sells out 20,000-seat arenas. I don't find Jim Gaffigan funny. I don't, okay? But really, I just don't. I find him funny for about 5 minutes, and then I find him to be somewhat annoying. But that's just me. But Jim Gaffigan plays Madison Square Garden, and I don't, so he must be doing something right? So I think the best way to solve this problem, and it's so incredibly easy, is just to communicate, just to talk to one another. I will give you a great example. I mentioned that I have 2 daughters. Well, one night I tried to make it movie night with them. And I said, I want you to watch one of my favorite movies, 16 Candles. Anybody ever seen that one? It's a John Hughes movie, okay? He's made a bunch of movies. He's made Home Alone. He made Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I happen to like 16 Candles. I said, let's watch this movie. It's set in high school. You'll love it. And we started watching, and about 5 minutes into it, they were just like, this is stupid. Can we watch something else? I said, I'm going to make a deal with both of you. We'll watch this movie, and then we'll watch what you think is funny. So we watched the movie, and I got to tell you, they weren't laughing hard, but there were moments in that movie where I was getting some good chuckles out of them. They were actually starting to be entertained. And when the movie was over, they said, that actually wasn't so bad. And I said, what do you want to watch now? They said, we want to watch Impractical Jokers. I think this is the stupidest show on television. It's 3 guys making crank phone calls and then laughing at themselves. But I said, I will give it a try, and you know what? I actually found myself laughing at it. Not all the time, but I found myself actually, I'm like, okay, I get it. I get why these guys are so popular. So it was really kind of a teaching moment for both of us. And that is what I think, if I can let you go away with one thing, and that is to learn from one another. Don't run away. Don't run away when you don't find something that is funny. That's what we're doing at work. I mentioned sports and music. I mean, think about it. If you went to work one day, and let's say you were a Bucks fan, and they were playing the Patriots that day, and maybe you're a Patriots fan, you wear your Tom Brady Patriots jersey, and somebody else has his Tom Brady Bucks jersey on, and maybe the Bucks beat the Patriots that day. Well, you guys would talk back and forth, and maybe you'd blow each other some crap and things like that, but that's where it would end. You wouldn't run to your boss and say, I can't work with this guy or this girl because she's wearing a Tom Brady Patriots jersey. If you hate Bob Dylan, but somebody in the cubicle next to you plays Bob Dylan all day long, it might not be your favorite form of music, but at least you might say, why do you like Bob Dylan so much? And they might say, because he's a great lyricist. Listen to some of these lyrics here. And before you know it, you might say, okay, I get it. That's what we should be doing with humor, but we're not. We're not giving it the time. We're running away, and bad things are happening as a result. And as I said, that's where the negative ramifications are taking over the positive benefits of humor, and we can't let that happen. So, with that, I would like to open it up to some questions.